Okay, the topic for this video is why the writers, especially the novelists, were much better in the 1800s than the 1900s. Okay, and so some people say, well, why aren't I talking about nutrition? Because the goals of my channel, I sort of have three main goals. Number one, to help people with nutrition and their health. Number two, to help people with study skills, how to develop themselves intellectually. This is part of that. But also number three, to try to save Western civilization. There's such a small number of people that are educated nowadays. Most people basically live their lives not knowing any history. And remember what Cicero said, to not know history, what happened before you were born, is to forever remain a child. And a civilization can't survive unless more people are educated. So you don't have to go to college. You'll get much better education watching my videos and other good YouTube channels on history than you will ever in a college. A college will have a bunch of left-wing, lefty, pinko, commie, scumbag dumbasses, okay? So when we talk about the writers, first of all, the reason why I don't like most of the writers in the 1900s is they're scumbags. And the reason why so many scumbags in the 1900s are famous, it's because they got promoted in the academic system because it promotes scumbags. It wants to sort of destroy the students, so it gets them to focus on scumbags. Like Virginia Woolf is a total joke. She's a lesbian who kept trying to commit suicide. What does that person know about life that can help you if their goal in life is to commit suicide? They're an idiot, okay? There's some other people like Hemingway was good when he was young. He was a Catholic. He was trying to get his act together. He developed a magnificent, short, concise style. But he ran into running out of things to say because he didn't have a purpose or a meaning beyond that, just having adventures. But he was brave and heroic, volunteered to go to World War I, World War II. So I do like Hemingway. So I'd call him a good author. But he's not really a great author. He doesn't have any big message that I think about on a routine basis that shapes my life, okay? The guys in the 1800s, look at guys like Fyodor Dostoevsky, Brothers Karamazov. The lesson there is you want to live like Alyosha. Be nice, be thoughtful, be a good Christian, give people the benefit of the doubt, help other people. Don't just immediately have a negative reaction towards them. I mean, that's a big message, how to live your life well. Same thing with Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Appreciate things, be grateful. Look at Scrooge before and after he appreciated Christianity and God and the chance he's been given. He became a much better person, and everyone else around him was happier, and he was happier himself. Okay, that's a big message. That's the greatest novel of all time, Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. Okay, second greatest novel of all time is probably Fyodor Dostoevsky, Brother Karamazov. Depending on my mood, I'll also sometimes say it's Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. The bishop forgives Jean Valjean, Jean Valjean does all these good things, and how Javert, even though he means well, he follows the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law, and he ends up being a big jerk, a monster. Okay, you should follow the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. Do what's right by people. The spirit of the law as, enunciated by Christ, okay? So I'm just briefly going to talk a little bit more about some of these writers in the 1900s and what happened and why you really shouldn't be teaching them that much in school. People on their own should go to them later if they want. But, look at these guys. Hemingway was an alcoholic, okay? So was James Joyce. James Joyce was a drunkard getting into fights, when he's in Paris and whatnot. Joyce, even though I'm Irish and in general I love Irish writers, Joyce was a scumbag, okay? He was a jerk, constantly getting in fights. Ulysses is just a piece of nonsense. There's very little meaningful information in that book, okay? It's essentially unreadable. Finnegan's Wake's even crazier, okay? Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man had at least some good stuff in it. Okay, F. Scott Fitzgerald, another guy with talent, and he destroyed himself being an alcoholic. To me, when a man destroys himself intentionally, that doesn't interest me. Lots of people destroy themselves intentionally. The world's full of self-destructive dumbasses, okay? That's not who I want to read and study. I want to study people who are really great. Now, sometimes guys like Fitzgerald and Hemingway had moments of greatness before they became alcoholics and destroyed themselves. And yeah, you can learn a little bit from them, but not that much, okay? The other thing, too, is, I've heard even some intelligent people say, oh, Thomas Mann was a great writer. Thomas Mann was a homosexual pedophile. Okay, so was Gustave Flaubert. Okay, some guy who wants to rape a child, he's not somebody who's going to teach me much. Anybody who wants to do that with their life doesn't have much that I'm interested in hearing, okay? But these are the kind of guys that get promoted in school, okay? And it's like all these homosexuals. If you're like a homosexual and you're, nowadays, If you're, gay, transgender, minority, then they'll make you into a celebrity no matter what your talent is. On the other hand, if you're magnificently talented, but you're a white Christian male, you'll be blocked from 100 different directions. And that's just the truth, and everybody knows it, okay? That's actually the truth in writing nowadays. When somebody says they want diversity amongst their university professors, ask them how many white male Christian Republican professors do they have. Many universities will not have a single one. They've been purged from the university system, okay? Okay, and whereas all these homosexual guys were made really famous, Somerset Maugham, D.H. Lawrence, E.M. Foster, Christopher Isherwood, Maynard Keynes, the same old Bloomsbury group of homosexuality and lesbians, okay, and suicidal maniacs. James Strahe, psychoanalyst, which is just a pile of BS psychoanalysis. Truman Capote, Tennessee Williams, James Baldwin, Allen Ginsberg, Edward Albee, Gore Vidal, and probably William Faulkner, okay? Not a single one of those guys is a great writer, okay? They're all totally overrated. You got guys like T.S. Eliot. At least he, tried to be a classicist, but he's really kind of a wimpy guy. This self-destructive, pathetic crap like Alfred Prufrock, okay, The Wasteland. Who wants that kind of stuff? There's nothing proud and great and strong. Mickey Spillane, Pulp Fiction, 25-cent novels, detective stories. Okay, it's nice. Drug addicts, Aldous Huxley. Brave New World was a great work, but then he degenerated and became an LSD addict, okay? So he fell for the same crap that he wrote about in his book. Ken Casey, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, another LSD addict scumbag, okay? When he was young, he was good. He was a wrestler, okay? And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was a magnificent book and movie. But still, something can be entertaining and not necessarily be good for your self-development. Serial adulterer, cheater, liar, scumbag, J.D. Salinger. These guys suck. These are not noble men who you want to inspire you to lead a better life. Lots of atheism. Again, if you're an atheist scumbag like Albert Camus, you get published. Or this historian, Peter Watson, who I'm reviewing his book right now about Germany, they get published. And then the other guy who's great, they get, ostracized. Guys like Tom Woods, Rodney Stark, they really are great authors, okay? And atheism says that life has no meaning. Well, if a guy says life has no meaning, how is he going to put meaning in his books? How is he going to have anything worthwhile to say to everybody else? The answer is he's not. Okay, same thing too. If somebody's communist, they get promoted. Like another big fraud was Helen Keller. Helen Keller did not write her books. They were written by her teacher, Anne Sullivan, and her husband, who was a Harvard professor communist, okay? Helen Keller is a big fraud, okay, just in case you didn't know that. I talked about what a suicidal maniac Virginia Woolf was, and Sylvia Plath, David Foster Wallace. Get out of here. A guy whose goal in life is to bump himself off, how is that going to help you to live your life better? It's not. And that's how you get published after 1950, is the more you're anti-Christian traditional family, heterosexual, be straight and don't be a drug addict, the less likely you are to get published or accepted as a university professor job. And that's why our universities, as they've de-Christianized, they now stink. They're all sellouts to corporations full of lies and crap. Okay, to be a great writer. A great writer is somebody who takes a serious problem and shows you how to solve the problem, who has a big insight that helps you, improves your life, makes your life better, empowers you. And they explain how they overcame it. They do something magnificent. The best male writers in the 1900s are like Tom Wolfe, Kingdom of Speech, and he wrote a bunch of other really good books about what a joke modern art is. Michael Crichton's, the master of the thriller suspense with Jurassic Park and his other books. Dan Brown, he's a little bit anti-Christian, but still Da Vinci Code was quite a page-turner. So was Angels and Demons, okay? Da Vinci Code, though, was one of the most interesting, fun books I ever read. I read the whole thing in a weekend. It was so fun to read. So well written. Even though he lies a lot, it was really well written in terms of its entertainment and suspense value. George Orwell's 1984 and Animal Farm are all-time classics. Everybody should read those books. C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. Everybody should read that book. G.K. Chesterton. I like his quotes. I wasn't as big a fan of his books, but there's a lot of brilliance in G.K. Chesterton. Richard Green, 48 Rules of Power. Richard Green's, sort of the modern Machiavelli. Not the nicest guy, but man, was 48 Rules of Power was a magnificent book. Magnificent book. His other book was pretty good too, Mastery. I like that. There's a lot of bullshit in Mastery, but it was still a good book. His book on seduction was stupid, though. He ain't a seducer. R. John Steele, Office Smarts. That tells you the truth about office smarts. Brian Tracy, Maximal Achievement. I read a bazillion self-help books. Maximal Achievement by Brian Tracy was the best one. He's a good example of noble masculinity, how to build yourself up. There are other guys who wrote good self-improvement books, guys like Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits. And now we're getting into nonfiction books where the author's skill isn't as important and the content message more important than their skill, but there's still room for skill in writing a self-help nonfiction book. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, brilliant book. Everybody should read that in like 8th grade or freshman year of high school to start thinking about money so they don't go through life being a minimum wage chump. And other self-help books, Dress for Success by Malloy, Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Those are all useful to read. Super Memory, Super Student by Lorraine. My study skills books. Okay, let's see. Who else was great? Good writers, male fiction writers in the 1900s. Well, Will Durant was nonfiction historian. He's a good historian. I wouldn't say he's a super great historian because he's long-winded. He goes on and on. He's in love with Voltaire, but still he's worth reading. I like his audiobooks. I just listen to him in the car. Gosh, I listened to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of Will Durant's history books. Paul Johnson, he's good. He's a Catholic, but he's an English Catholic, and he pissed me off that he criticizes Ireland a lot. He's a little naive. He believes every stupid thing a politician says. But he's still a good historian, Paul Johnson. He's got a bunch of audio CD books and paper books. J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, was okay. Franz Kafka, Metamorphosis was entertaining. Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451. These are all minor writers, good minor writers. They're worth reading, but they shouldn't be at the top of your list. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Little Prince. Good if you're bilingual and you want to study French. Mario Puzo's Godfather. That's a good historical fiction. And I liked other historical fiction novels, things like James Michener on Poland, things like Leon Uris, Trinity and Exodus. Those are worth reading, okay? But they're not top-of-the-line reading. Top-of-the-line reading books would be more like Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak, the books about American history by David Barton, Catholic history by Thomas Woods, European history by Rodney Stark. They wrote magnificent books. Tom Clancy's books were real helpful to me. I read a whole bunch of Tom Clancy books in the past, and I especially liked the one about submarines. That gave me a real sense of it. They're less important to read Tom Clancy, but I enjoyed them. Joseph Heller, Catch-22 is good. Kurt Vonnegut is good. David Hackworth's book about Vietnam is the best book I've ever written about Vietnam, called About Face. Let's see, what else? The best female writers of the 1900s would be like Margaret Mitchell's novel, Gone with the Wind. It's one of the all-time great novels. It's a masterpiece. I can't even say how great that book is, okay? 51 audio CDs, all right? So I listened to that every day for 2 months in a car. Ayn Rand, her best book was Atlas Shrugged. I like Ayn Rand. Just her quotes and her philosophies. Return of the Primitive was a good book by her as well. Not well known, but it's great. With Ann Coulter's a great genius. Everybody hates her because she's so fucking smart, okay? Ayn Rand and Ann Coulter are two of the smartest women who ever lived. Okay, good female writers, Amy Chua, Tiger Mom, Triple Package, they're both well-reading. Agatha Christie, Mousetrap, etc. is good stuff. In the 1900s, I wasn't that big a fan of any of the 1800s, the old-time English novels. Pride and Prejudice, 1700s, 1800s. It's okay, but it doesn't do much for me. The best male writers of the 1800s, we already talked about a lot of them. Schopenhauer is a magnificent philosophy writer. Yeah, he's crazy. Yeah, he's sick in the head, but he's still magnificent. Henry Sienkiewicz, Quo Vadis, one of the all-time greatest novels. Oscar Wilde, The Importance of Becoming Earnest was his best book, but Portrait of Dorian Gray was also good, but Ernest was the best one. Carl Collodi's Pinocchio, Ralph Waldo Emerson's Speeches, American Scholar, Self-Reliance, magnificent. Edgar Allan Poe, I love Edgar Allan Poe's writing. He's magnificent. Lew Wallace was good with Ben-Hur. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes. Anton Chekhov's short stories. Nathaniel Hawthorne, Scarlet Letter. Lewis Carroll's good, not as good. But again, these are good, not great writers. Anyway, so what I'm basically saying is I got a lot more value out of the fiction writers from the 1800s. From the 1900s, I got more value out of the nonfiction writers. There really aren't that many nonfiction writers in the 1800s for self-help. But anyways, I was just showing you this. So if you want to read novels, forget about the 1900s guys, except for the last couple that I mentioned here. Spend your time on, read the all-time greatest ones of the 1800s first. As Ayn Rand had said, her great book where she wrote about the writers is about, it's called the Romantic Manifesto. She said the 1800s were light years ahead of the 1900s in cultures, and that's true both in painting as well as in literature. So anyways, hope you found that helpful.